son?
I don't cry. I have no emotion.
She does cry. She just she'll save it up till I ask her to give me her phone or something. All right.
First Kings, you said?
Yeah, First Kings 1. That's where we're starting. We started at the very beginning of the book.
First Kings 1.
Yes. All right. Have you ever wondered what history is going to say about the 2016 presidential election? When they look back on it, I contend that the Trump victory is going to be one of the most misunderstood elements of American political history.
Yeah.
Today's lesson is in First Kings, and I couldn't help but see some parallels between Solomon's ascent to the throne and our own current events. They both have a confusion as to who actually should be the leader. They both have betrayals within their respective cabinets. They both have schisms within the religious sectors over the results. I guess you could say that there were some never Solomoners back in Solomon's day. And there was a loser that couldn't accept the loss and was sneaky about trying to usurp Solomon. I'm serious. If CNN and Fox News were around in Solomon's day, you'd have fake news and deplorables just like you got today. With the exception that there aren't elections in a monarchy. Now, who typically becomes the next king? Olivia, in a monarchy?
The son.
A son of a...
The eldest son.
Typically the oldest son. So, right now they're dealing with that with Prince Charles and his kids. So the point is that the assumption, the safe assumption would be that the oldest son would be the heir to the throne. But is that always automatically the case? Can a king choose his successor?
David did.
Rather than going down the hereditary line, as it were. So, now what if the king tries to choose someone and the king's old and feeble? Do people dismiss what he says and actually go with what is supposed to happen? Or at least if he's perceived to be old and feeble. Olivia, 1 Kings 1 through 4.
Now King David was old and advanced in years, and although they covered him with clothes, he could not get warm. Therefore his servants said to him, Let a young woman be sought from our lord the king, and let her wait on the king and be in his service. Let her lie in your arms, that my lord the king may be warm. So they sought for a beautiful young woman throughout all the territory of Israel, and found Abishag and
Your guess is
The Shunammite. She's a Shunammite.
Shunammite, and brought her to the king. The young woman was very beautiful, and she was of service to the king and attended to him, but the king named her not.
Okay, so let's translate some of that. What version is that? King James?
English Standard.
English Standard. All right, so a couple of things. Mine's got a little bit more specifics in it. Mine says, let us look for a young virgin to serve the king and take care of him. She can lie beside him so that our Lord the king may keep warm. And then it says, where yours said that he knew her not, the king had no sexual relations with her. So David is getting up there in age, and I've delivered to senior citizens' homes. And every time that I go in there, it's insanely hot inside those places. Mm-hmm. And even when I went to go visit him, I go into his room and I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, the UPS, thing, because I never wear long pants. And I go in there and I'm like, can we turn the thermostat down a bit? It's one of the signs of senior citizenry is not being able to deal with temperature very well. You get cold an awful lot of the time. And the reason for that, by the way, is scientific. Your metabolism is slowing down. My metabolism is still going gangbusters. And so I burn people out of the bed. I can't snuggle Marty at night for very long because, geez, you get off of it because I'm just so overheated. The opposite is true here. David, his metabolism is slowing down, and so no matter what kind of clothing they put on him, no matter how many quilts they put on his bed, he just can't stay warm. All right. So this is a sign that he's on his last days. By the way, I need to point out here that David's age. Anybody want to take a stab at how old David is at this point? No.
Probably 50 or 60.
70. He's 70 years of age.
I didn't live for ever.
Now I do want to point out that David being 70, right, doesn't equate to today's 70. Medical advancements, prolong our lives nowadays. But also think about all the stress he had to deal with. He was evading Saul for all those years. He was fighting the Philistines. I mean, he had all that stress that was going on in his life. I think David and Goliath probably was a pretty stressful situation too. I mean, he took it in good stride, but this guy's had a lot of stress. And stress ages people. If you don't believe that, look at Abraham Lincoln's picture before and after.
Any president.
Any president. Yeah, all of them. All of them. When you see when they were inaugurated and when they leave office, whether it's a 4 or an 8-year tenure, doesn't really matter. The age that happens in those 4 years, it's a very stressful position. David was in a very stressful position, so he probably was very prematurely aged. His number of years may have been 70, but I'd put him probably in the 90-plus category. So even though his metabolism is shutting down, the electric blanket has not been invented yet, so he can't keep warm. And I can personally vouch for the fact that putting a hot stone at the foot of your bed doesn't actually work out. I think we burned a couple of sheets when we were trying that. What Papa used to do is turn the thermostat down when it was snowing in Greenville, save some electricity. What they do is they take these big stones. In fact, we still have some of those big round stones. Set them next to the fireplace off on the side, and then they take these big tongs and they wrap them up in towels and set it in your bed, and it would keep your feet warm. Problem is sometimes you can't really adjust to how hot those things are. And I do remember seeing scorch marks on some of the sheets. Not burned, they didn't engulf in flames, but it's pretty hot.
We have dogs for that these days.
Yes. And in fact, they said that the St. Bernard, with the big old bottle of rum or whatever it is.
Pig.
Yeah, it turns out that that's not really the truth. The St. Bernard snuggling, the fur would have kept the person warm, and that's what would actually kill. The alcohol will actually kill you because
it lowers your body.
Exactly. But anyway, so since they don't have electric blankets, they get a virgin to keep them warm. Now it isn't what. Oh, by the way, and this woman, by the way, is estimates have put her at anywhere from 12 to 12 and a half years of age, before the age of fertility. Her job was just to keep him warm, wasn't to satisfy him sexually. That was not her job.
Let's just take care of him.
Take care of him, but feed him, whatever. But and the other thing is that a lot of people suspect that she is the female protagonist in the Song of Songs. So when we get into the Song of Songs and you hear about this young woman, this is the person, that's the guy that he's talking about, that Solomon was writing about. But anyway, but her metabolism is running high. She's going through the teenage years. So she shares his bed, snuggle up to him to share her warmth with him. And while all that's going on with David, I want us to take a look back at the line of succession. Okay. All right, so those who've been paying attention, first son was Amnon. What happened to him? He was killed by Absalom, David's third son. The second son we don't really hear much about. He's probably died in his young youth or whatever. His name was Kileab or Daniel, and there's no real record of his life, so he probably died early on. But Absalom, of course, the third son, who also did try to take the throne for reals, got his hair tangled up in some trees, and who killed him?
Joab.
Joab did it. All right, that's going to be important later on in today's story. So you got so that's 3 down. All right. So sons 1, 2, and 3.
9,
no, 19.
19.
And Solomon is number 11 on a list of 19. So you got a ways to go to get down.
He better get busy.
It reminds me of that Carol Burnett thing where they were reading the will and they had to. You remember that one?
Yeah.
So
the last one.
Split the difference. So 1, 2, and 3 are gone. Now Adonijah, Adonijah, the fourth son, he's the guy that we're going to be talking about today. Then after him, you've got Sephatah, Arethium, a guy we've never heard before. Shemiah, Shobab, Nathan, who we know about. Nathan is the lineage of Mary. By the way, Nathan and Solomon, both children of Bathsheba, which is the one that David committed adultery with. Which is why I keep saying,
God had his hand in it.
I know. I think that she probably would have been his wife anyway. He just jumped the gun. I think that something would have happened where he would have noticed her after her husband had died or whatever. It would have happened the natural way. Anyway, so you see how far we have to go to get to Solomon.
Yeah.
So let's talk about number 4. So the next one to be in line to the king is Adonijah, because all the other siblings have been killed. Solomon's number 11 would be pretty clear cut to who should be the next king. All the rules say this guy, number 4, Adonijah, should be king. Oh, and another point I need to bring up here. David was many things. He was great in victorious campaigns. He had the heart of God, but he wasn't a great dad. He had issues with letting his sons do whatever they wanted without any consequences. He was not a disciplinarian by any sense of the imagination. And if you need to verify that, look at the other 2 kids. One raped his half sister. David didn't do anything about it for a year. And then Absalom took matters into his own hands. And then David let him come back again anyway. So David's not really. He spares the rod. What is it? You spare the rod, spoil the child. David has spoiled his kids rotten, and so now you're going to see evidence of that now. So, Dad, if you would read 1 Kings 1, verses 5 through 14.
Now Adonijah, whose mother was Haggith, that's the 12-year-old?
No.
What was her name? Abishag, okay.
One of them hags.
Put himself forward and said, I will be king. So he got chariots and horses ready, with 50 men to run ahead of him. His father never rebuked him by asking, why do you behave so as you do? He was also very handsome and was born next to Absalom. Adonijah conferred with Joab, son of Zeruiah, and with Abiathar the priest, and they gave him their support. But Zadok the priest, Benaiah son of
Whoever.
Nathan the prophet, Shimei, and David's special guard did not join Adonijah. Adonijah then sacrificed sheep, cattle, and fatted calves at the stone of Zoheleth near Enrogel. He invited all his brothers, the king's sons, and all the royal officials of Judah, but he did not invite Nathan the prophet. Or Nathan's the one that pointed to David and said, thou art the man.
Yeah. He is.
Nathan the prophet, or Benaiah, or the special guard over his brother Solomon.
Didn't invite Solomon to his own coronation.
Mine says by the serpents.
You still got a little ways to go. 14.
How much?
To 14.
Let's see, where was I?
11.
You said 13?
14.
14. Then Nathan asked Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, have you not heard that Adonijah, the son of Haggith, has become king, and our Lord David knows nothing about it? Now then, let me advise you how you can save your own life and the life of your son Solomon. Go in to King David and say to him, my lord the king, did you not swear to me, your servant, surely Solomon, your son, shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne? Then, why then has Adonijah become king? While you are still there talking to the king, I will come in and add my word to what you have said. Is that right?
Yeah. So Adonijah takes it upon himself to declare himself the next king. He doesn't wait for David to anoint him. He just says, well,
Or die.
David's old, feeble. He can't even keep himself warm. Someone's got to take charge. Might as well be me. By birthright, it's mine to take.
Yeah.
But look who he gathers to his side. If you go back up, he speaks to Joab, right?
Yeah.
Who is his cousin and David's military commander, right? Abiathar, you may not remember, he's the guy who got away when all those priests were being massacred by Saul's minions. He got away and he had the coat with the 2 coins that David kept talking to. That's that guy. So he was the religious counsel for David when he was out and about. Zadok, Nathan, you know Nathan, thou art the man. Shimei, Ray, and David's special guard. This puts me in mind of Rex Tillerson chatting with Nikki Haley, trying to get her to go along with this 25th Amendment thing. Right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? In fact, she did an interview this past week. If you haven't seen it, I'd love to be able to show it to you, where she talks candidly about for an hour and a half. And this is one of those points. She wrote about it in a book. And they said, did you tell the president about it? She said, no, it's not my place to tell him. I said, if you've got a problem, you need to talk to him, but don't get me involved in it. Anyway, but what is astonishing me is who flips to Adonijah's team. Joab and Abiathar. The religious dude with the coins, who was there the whole time when David asked hey, listen, I need to ask God this question. Can you flip the coins for me? He was there. He knows all this stuff. And Joab, of course, who's the military commander. Now, Joab's got a lot of personality flaws, and one of them is for his own advancement. You got to realize he was the one who, when Saul's military advisor showed up, he killed him. Remember when? And he was also the one that killed Absalom in the tree. He was also the one that, whenever anything. He also killed the other military commander, his brother, on his own. David didn't say, "Hey, you need to go out and do this." He did this all on his own. So he's one of these guys that sort of like he's in it for himself more than anything else. I mean, David gives him orders, he'll do it. But if there's a decision that needs to be made, he's going to make whatever is the best decision for him. And this is one of those times. He says, "Well, obviously, you're the next king. I'm on your side."
That makes sense.
It would make sense, but you still got to wait for David to be coronated. You still got to, for the actual official thing. I mean, Charles cannot become king just because he wants it right now. I mean, he probably has wanted it for the last 30 years, but he can't take it because his mom's still alive, right? So David's still alive. You can't just go and say that you're.
I visited London back in the 70s, and at that time the tour guide who was taking us out to Stonehenge said that it's imminent that the Queen was going to turn over power to her son. And that was in the 70s.
No, it ain't happened yet.
And that was 50 years ago, 40 years ago.
So, anyway, at the same time that all that's going on, Nathan and Bathsheba plan to have a chat with the aged King David about the situation. Because remember, he said David doesn't know anything about this yet. David's still, barely holding on. So, let's get into the actual discussion with David. Mom, if you read 15 through 27.
So Bathsheba went to see the aged king in his room, where Abishag, the Shunammite, was attending him. Bathsheba bowed low and knelt before the king. "What is it you want?" the king asked. She said to him, "My lord, you yourself swore to me your servant by the Lord your God. Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne. But now Adonijah has become king, and you, my lord the king, do not know about it. He has sacrificed great numbers of cattle, fattened calves, and sheep, and has invited all the king's sons, Abiathar the priest, and Joab the commander of the army, but he has not invited Solomon your servant. My lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are on you to learn from you who will sit on the throne of my lord the king after him. Otherwise, as soon as my lord the king is laid to rest with his fathers, I and my son Solomon will be treated as criminals." While she was still speaking with the king, Nathan the prophet arrived, and they told the king, "Nathan the prophet is here." So he went before the king and bowed with his face to the ground. Nathan said, Have you, my lord the king, declared that Adonijah shall be king after you, and that he will sit on your throne? Today he has gone down and sacrificed great numbers of cattle, fattened calves, and sheep. He has invited all the king's sons, the commanders of the army, and Abiathar the priest. Right now they are eating and drinking with him and saying, "Long live King Adonijah, thank you." But me, your servant, and Zadok the priest, and Benaniah, son of Jehoiada, and your servant Solomon, he did not invite. Is this something my lord the king has done without letting his servants know who should sit on the throne as my lord the king after him?
So this puts me in mind of Nunez realizing what the intelligence community has done and ran to the White House to tell Trump that he had been spied on. Remember that whole scene? And he still is catching flack for that. But anyway, so there. Did you know about this? Now, by the way, I got to point out this picture right here is a cartoon. Obviously, every picture or artwork that I found of David with the Virgin had her in some sort of undressed state, and so I wasn't going to bring that in here. So you have to go with a kids cartoon, which they would not do that.
That's perfectly all right.
Yeah, but this is Bathsheba asking him about it, and there's the young girl attending him behind him. Now, he says, did you know about this? Is this something that we should know about? Have you changed your mind about Solomon? Now, apparently David has promised Bathsheba that Solomon would be king. I can't find a reference to that in the Bible to where he said, no. But last week, you remember when we were talking about when David was up and about and able to talk to people, which once again, chronologically speaking, I would assume that happened first, right? Because David's in his bed, he can't get up, right? So you got to put it in context. That's why I did Chronicles last week to bring it up before this. He went up and said Solomon's going to build this temple. He's going to be the king. Right. You got all the people in Israel behind Solomon. You got all the elders behind Solomon. So with that having happened, and now he's bedridden, the question is, what was all that other stuff? Have you changed your mind about things? You know? And so I understand Nathan bringing this up. He said, is this something we should be aware of, that you've changed your mind? Because, I mean, just last week you were talking, well, not last week, you went out and did all that public decreeing about Solomon building the temple, and you got everybody rallied up behind him. Have you made a change in your mind? It brings me in mind of someone changing the will at the last moment. You got to be really nice to the elderly because all of a sudden you're out of the will. I mean, shoot, my mother-in-law is a perfect situation. The concept was the whole time that the inheritance was going to be granted, and all of a sudden now it's gone just because someone else has made her change her mind. So it could happen. I mean, an elderly person, could change his mind.
Or not be aware of what's going on.
So the question is, and I double this down to King David: has he changed his mind? What does David feel about this? Pastor, you got a lot of reading to do. You got 28 through 40.
Then King David said, call in Bathsheba. So she came into the king's presence and stood before him. The king then took an oath, as surely as the Lord lives, who has delivered me out of every trouble, I will surely carry out today what I spoke to you by the Lord, the God of Israel. Solomon your son shall be king after me, and he will sit on my throne in my place. Then Bathsheba bowed low with her face to the ground, and kneeling before the king said, May my lord King David live forever. King David said, call in Zadok, the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah, son of Jehoiada. When they came before the king, he said to them, Take your Lord's servant with you, and set Solomon my son on my own mule, and take him down to Gihon. There have Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him over Israel. Blow the trumpet and shout, Long live King Solomon. Then you are to go up with him, and he is to come and sit on my throne and reign in my place. I have appointed him ruler over Israel and Judah. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, whatever the name is, answered the king, Amen. May the Lord, the God of my Lord the king, so declare it. As the Lord was with my Lord, the king, so with as the Lord was with my Lord the king, so may he be with Solomon, to make him his throne even greater than the throne of my Lord King David. So Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, the Kerethite, and the Peleathite, went down and put Solomon on King David's mule, and escorted him to Gihon. Zadok the priest took the horn of oil from the sacred tent and anointed Solomon. Then they sounded the trumpet, and all the people shouted, Long live King Solomon. And all the people went up after him, playing flutes and rejoicing greatly, so that the ground shook with their sound.
So David is made it official. And by the way, just between you and me, he says, all right, no. Solomon's going to be the king. Now, if you're still going by the line of succession, that means, all right, we got to kill this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy.
I'm thinking the whole time somebody's gonna die.
But no, David verifies it and puts his everything behind it. Solomon's going to be the next king. He gave his blessing. He anointed him. He even let Solomon ride the royal mule, whatever that means. And so, and a lot of this, Pastor, sorry it was so long, but a lot of this is do this, and then they did this. You could have abbreviated it, but they followed David's instructions to the letter. Notice who's involved with this. You've got the priest, Zadok, and you've got Nathan the prophet. David's going to stay in bed. He can't get up and go with him, but he said, you've got my blessing. You go deal with it. And so those guys went with his seal of approval, quite honestly, and did this. And the people in the town shouted, yay! I mean, you've got people in the city that were rejoicing, singing, playing music. So much that it rebounded across the land. 41 to 53.
Well, Nathan was the logical one to call in, and he knows what God wants to happen.
Yes. 1 Kings 1, 41 through 53. It's quite a bit, but this is good reading here. Adonijah
and all the guests who were with him heard it as they finished feasting. And when Joab heard the sound of the trumpet, he said, what is this uproar in the city? While he was still speaking, behold, Jonathan, the son of Abiathar, the priest, came. And Adonijah said, come in, for you are a worthy man, and bring good news. Jonathan answered Adonijah, no, for our Lord King David has made Solomon king. And the king has sent with him Zadok the priest, Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, and the Cherethites, and the Pelethites. And they had him ride on the king's mule. And Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet have anointed him king of Gihon. And they have gone up from the rejoicing, so that the city is in an uproar. This is the noise that you have heard. Solomon sits on the royal throne. Moreover, the king's servants came to congratulate our Lord King David, saying, may your God make the name of Solomon more famous than yours, and make his throne greater than your throne. So the king bowed himself on the bed. And the king also said, blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who has granted someone to sit on my throne this day. My own eyes see it. Then all the guests of Adonijah trembled and rose, and each went his own way.
No, keep going. 53.
And Adonijah feared Solomon. So he arose and went and took hold of the horns of the altar. Then it was told Solomon, behold, Adonijah fears King Solomon, for behold, he has laid hold of the horns of the altar, saying, let King Solomon swear to me first that he will not put his servant to death with the sword. And Solomon said, if he will show himself a worthy man, not one of his hairs shall fall to the earth, but if wickedness is found in him, he shall die. So King Solomon sent, and they brought him down from the altar. And he came and paid homage to King Solomon, and Solomon said to him, go to your house.
Now, my favorite part of that is,
He get it pretty easy, didn't he?
at that point, all the guests rose and dispersed. So all the people that he had invited, including Joab, including Abiathar, the coin flipper, and by the way, the guy that's giving all this stuff is that priest's son, the Jonathan, son of Abiathar. So he says, "Come in, you've got good news." He says, "No, not a bit of it." And so that's the noise you're hearing there. But we also get another detail about the story that we didn't get the first time. We hear David saying, "Thank God that I was able to see my successor with my own eyes before I die." So this is not good. This is not good. Remember when Abiathar when Adonijah said that he was going to be king, Bathsheba was concerned about herself and Solomon's safety. They're going to treat us as criminals. Well, now it's flipped. So now Adonijah's, and he's got more reason to be concerned because he actually tried to usurp the throne. He's done a no-no. But, once again, so what he does is, on the altar, there were two horns that were on both sides of the altar. And he goes up and he grabs hold of the altars, by the horns. and he's not leaving because he's trying to hold on, not out of trying to maintain his power per se, but he is holding on because of fear. Yeah, the fear that Solomon's gonna kill him. And word of that gets back to Solomon, and Solomon said, no, listen, if he's a reasonable man and he's not going to be wicked and he can behave himself, then not a hair on his head is going to be harmless. But I will interject right here that David's son's control is not their forte. Self-control is not their forte. Now we get into David's final words. His list of suggestions to the new King Solomon. Now, we already know the last thing he said. So now we got to go back and hear some of the other things. So, Dad, if you would read 1 Kings 2, 1 through 4.
When the time drew near for David to die, he gave a charge to Solomon his son. I'm about to go the way of all the earth, he said. So be strong, act like a man, and observe what the Lord your God requires. Walk in obedience to him, and keep his decrees and commands, his laws and regulations, as written in the law of Moses. Do this so that you may prosper in all that you do, and wherever you go, and that the Lord may keep his promise to me. If your descendants watch how they live, and if they walk faithfully before me with all their heart and soul, you will never fail to have a successor on the throne of Israel.
That's quite possibly the best advice that any king could give to father specifically, but in a leadership role. It was whenever a presidential switch of power occurs. It's usually, up until this last one, it's usually been sort of all right, passing of the torch here. Here's what you need to know about this. Here's the briefings here and all this stuff. We'll get our staff.
You'll never hear from me again.
Yeah. But this last one, it's just been so much animosity, not giving any advice. In fact, holding things back and trying to create problems and stir up things. It really was, once again, the 2016 election was a shock to everybody. But I will say, look at the advice that David is passing on to his successor. All right, he says, act like a man. I like that. He says, obey God. I like that one too. Keep God's laws. I like that one too. Now, Solomon is going to break that last one pretty substantially with all the wives that he brings in and the idolatry that's going to end up destroying this great kingdom of Israel. But that's for another lesson. If you do that, what does it say? If you do these things, if you act like a man, you walk in obedience to God, and you follow his laws, and what's going to happen? You're going to prosper. And you're always going to have an heir on the throne. So what's the inverse of that? You don't do these things.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen, right? I think we need that advice in the world today, don't we? I think a lot of, what's his name? Phil Robertson, the Duck Dynasty dude. You ever seen him?
Yeah.
Phil Robertson, the guy with the beard and all that stuff.
He shaved it, didn't he?
What?
I thought he shaved last week.
Not that I've seen it. But anyway, so he said it's so simple. Being a Christian is so simple. He said, love God and love each other. How hard can that possibly be?
Oh, you got Democrats there.
You see what I'm saying? That's almost like what he's saying here. He said you need to obey God and follow his laws as a leader. Now, we get into the people and David's suggestions to Solomon as to how to deal with certain people that he's had exposure to. And he really only brings up three individuals. Three individuals that he feels that Solomon needs to deal with. Mom, 5 through 12.
Now you yourself know what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me, what he did to the two commanders of Israel's armies, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jether. He killed them, shedding their blood in peacetime as if in battle, and with that blood stained the belt around his waist and the sandals on his feet. Deal with him according to your wisdom, but do not let his gray head go down to the grave in peace. But show kindness to the sons of Bazirai of Gilead, and let them be among those who eat at your table. They stood by me when you fled from your brother Absalom. And remember, you have with you Shemaiah, son of Jerah the Benjamite from Bahurim, who called down bitter curses on me the day I went to Mahaman. When he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, I will not put you to death by the sword. But now do not consider him innocent. You are a man of wisdom. You will know what to do to him. Bring his gray head down to the grave and blood.
In case you don't know.
Then David rested with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. He had reigned 40 years over Israel, 7 years in Hebron, and 33 in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father David, and his rule was firmly established.
So here's the three individuals, right? Joab needs to be dealt with. He's murdered people on his own without my consent during peacetime. And he didn't even bring up the fact that Joab killed Absalom. He's the guy that ran Absalom through when he was still hanging in the trees. Joab is one of those guys that thinks he's the guy pulling the strings. You know, he's controlling the situation. Don't let him die of old age, basically, is what David said. Barzillai, he said, no, this guy helped me out a lot. Take care of him and his family. And remember, when we were talking about him earlier, he was an old man, didn't cross the Jordan. But he said, here, take my son Kimham with you, and whatever you're going to give to me, give to him. And he gave him a little plot of land, which became an inn in Bethlehem, which is very, very, very most likely, because it was referenced 3 times in the Bible, and God doesn't do that. You know, there's a reason why it was mentioned. But it's very likely that that's the spot in Bethlehem where they said we don't have any room, but we've got a stable in the back. You can pop your kid out back there, and that's where Mary had baby Jesus.
I'll let you know, I'm not on my phone, I'm taking notes and reading.
That's
Wait till
fine.
I think I'm on my phone.
No. All right.
I mean, I am. What?
And now the last guy, Shimei. You know that guy that he insults and dirt upon me when I was fleeing Absalom? Do me a favor and kill that guy. And that was the last word on David's lips. That was the last word that King David spoke on this earth is kill that guy.
Because I promised him I would.
I promised him I wouldn't. He's keeping a promise, but now you're gonna have to deal with that guy. So now the reign of King Solomon begins. So remember the caveat for Solomon to not harm Adonijah. Remember, he said, "No, if you can behave yourself, I'm not gonna hurt you." By the way, his name means Jah is my Lord, which is Yah is my Lord, which is part of Yahweh. But if you actually construed it all around, it says, "I am my Lord," because I am Yahweh. Remember, I am. But anyway, so the rule was that he had to behave himself, right? And like I said before, one thing about David's sons is control is not their strong suit. So, Pastor, 13 through 21, please.
You said 13?
13 through 21.
Okay. Now Adonai, the son of Haggith, went to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother. Bathsheba asked him, "Do you come peacefully?" He answered, "Yes, peacefully." Then he added, "I have something to say to you." "You may say it," she replied. "As you know," he said, "the kingdom was mine. All Israel looked to me as their king. But things changed, and the kingdom has gone to my brother. For it has come to him from the Lord. Now I have one request to make of you. Do not refuse me." "You may make it," she said. So he continued, Please ask King Solomon, he will not refuse you, to give me Abijah, the Shumanite, as my wife." "Very well," Bathsheba replied. "I will speak to the king for you." And Bathsheba went to King Solomon, to speak to him for Adonijah. The king stood up to meet her, bowed down to her, and sat down on the throne. He had a throne brought for the king's mother, and she sat down at his right hand. "I have one small request to make of you," she said. "Do not refuse me," the king replied. "Make it, my mother. I will not refuse you." So So she said, let Abishai, the Shumanite, be given in marriage to your brother Adonai.
Okay, so what's the deal with this request?
That's the little girl that was.
All he wants is the bed warming virgin. I mean, David's didn't even use her, and he's gone. So there's no harm here. Just let me have her as my wife. So what's the big deal? I mean, surely there can't be a problem with this request. Well,
There's got to be some underhanded thing.
well, let me point out to you that Adonijah knows it's inappropriate. And the way I can tell you that he knows it's inappropriate is look at how he goes around about to get to Solomon. If he didn't have any problem with it, he goes straight to Solomon and asks him to his face. But no. He gets the king's mom involved. Right? That's dirty. That's dirty. So yeah, so he knows it's inappropriate. Look how he asks. He uses Solomon's mom to ask for him. Now, it's one thing, remember David's last words to Solomon were, act like a man, right? This is not that you're asking a woman to ask for you. I mean, this is. Now, I will also point out that when he asked Bathsheba, he said, listen, this kingdom was mine. You know it, I know it. But the Lord gave it away to Solomon, so maybe you can ask, this one little favor. Just ask this one little thing. So, what's the problem? Well, she was considered part of David's harem. All right, even though she never knew him, she was considered part of, and it's a sneaky way of trying to lay claim to the throne by way of David's concubine. Remember, Absalom took David's concubines publicly as a statement of, I am the king. All right, so if Adonijah, who technically should be king, if you want to look at it, he's the older brother, and then he goes and he marries the concubine, quote unquote, of his dad, that gives him more standing. Right? So this is just a power play. Now Bathsheba does not understand it. She says, what's the harm in that? Just like all of us do. But you gotta understand the politics of it. This is like someone giving a donation to be an ambassador to somewhere else. This is what he's trying to do is he's trying to get his foot back in the door. This is not behaving well. This is being sneaky about it. And even though Bathsheba doesn't understand the implications, Solomon surely does.
But he's already promised that he was going to do what she asked.
So let's see how this happens. All right, 22 through 34. Okay.
We're in 1 Kings, LG.
Yeah, 1 Kings 2.
King Solomon answered his mother, and why do you ask for Abishai the Shunammite
Yeah. Close enough.
for Adonijah? Ask for the kingdom also, for he is my older brother, and on his side are Abiathar the priest and Joab the son of Zeruiah.
All right, stop right there. All right, so you see, Solomon's very much aware of what he's got going on here. He's already got the military commander on his side, and he's got one of the priests on his side. Now all he needs is a concubine. That's a triple threat, you see. And he's got the lineage too. So this would definitely catapult him to being, able to make a case to the people that, look, I'm really the king here. Solomon, David was feeble and didn't know what he was saying. I'm really the king here. Like you go.
Then King Solomon swore by the Lord, saying, Thou wilt do so to me, and more also, if this word does not cost Adonijah his life. Now therefore, as the Lord lives, who has established me and placed me on the throne of David my father, and who has made me a house as he promised, Adonijah shall be put to death today. So King Solomon sent Benaiah, how do you say it?
Benaiah.
Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, I don't know how to say it.
Okay.
And he struck him down, and he died. And to Abiathar the priest, the king said, Go to Anathoth to your estate, for you deserve death. But I will not at this time put you to death, because you carried the ark of the Lord God before David my father, and because you shared in all of my father's affliction. So Solomon expelled Abiathar from being a priest to the Lord, thus fulfilling the word of the Lord that he had spoken concerning the house of Eli and Shiloh. How far?
34.
When the news came to Joab, for Joab had supported Adonijah although he had not supported Absalom, Joab fled to the tent of the Lord and caught hold of the horns of the altar. And when it was told King Solomon, Joab has fled to the tent of the Lord, and behold, he is beside the altar. Solomon sent Benaiah to the son of Jehoiada. I don't say, go strike him down. So Benaiah came to the tent of the Lord and said to him, the king commands, come out. But he said, no, I will bow here. And Benaiah brought the king the word again, saying, thus said Joab, and thus he answered him. The king replied to him, do as he has said, strike him down and bury him, and thus take away from me and from my father's house the guilt for the blood that Joab shed without cause. The Lord will bring back his bloody deeds on his own head, because without the knowledge of my father David, he has hacked and killed with the sword 2 men more righteous and better than himself. Abner the son of Ner, commander of the army of Israel, and Absalom the son of Jether, commander of the army of Judah. So shall their blood come back on the head of Joab and on the head of his descendants forever. But for David and for his descendants and for his house and for his throne there shall be peace from the Lord forevermore. Then Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, I can't say that
That's
one,
okay.
went up and struck him down and put him to death. And he was buried in his own house in the wilderness. The king put Benaiah the son of
That guy.
over the army in place of Joab, and the king put Zadok the priest in the place of Abiathar.
Okay. So
There's so many.
I know. Our son of, the dads had the weird names. The kids, we had names we could pronounce. The father, son of whoever. All right. So a couple of interesting things here. Notice that as soon as Solomon orders Adonijah to be executed, Joab freaks out. See, this is what more reinforcement of the fact that there was a plot lying underneath it. There was this whole there's this whole Ukrainian thing that sort of exposed something else and they don't want it. Same sort of thing here. There was a sort of a plot, and I'm sure they had conspired to get this thing done. But Solomon was onto them and stopped it before it could go any farther. And then the other guys all freaked out underneath it because there was obviously some communication going on about it. So here's what happened. So Adonijah gone, and Benaiah, or what's his name? Benaiah, he's the one who does it. Then Joab goes and grabs hold of the altars, and he says, come out. He says, no, I'll die here. And Solomon says, well, that's what he asked for. And so struck him down right there in the temple and dragged his carcass out and buried him back in the wilderness in his homeland. So that's 2 down. Abathar, the priest, the guy that had flipped the coins for him, the one that had escaped the massacre from Saul's minions and all that stuff, he said, look, I'm not going to kill you. You deserve death for this conspiracy. But I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to strip you of your priesthood. So he strips him of his priesthood and lets him go back and be a farmer or whatever in his hometown, but doesn't kill him. Which, for the descendant of Eli, is just as bad as being dead. Now remember, I don't know if you can go all the way back to Eli. Eli had those 2 sons that were not taking sacrifices the way they should. And God said that, those 2 kids are going to die. And not only that, but there aren't going to be any more Eli descendants that are going to be in the priesthood. Well, apparently this guy was one of the descendants of Eli. And so this then fulfills that prophecy because now their line is cut off entirely. Once again, God, when he makes a promise, he does not forget. And that all the way from Joshua to here, I think it's like 500, 600 years difference between those 2 time frames. So this is a fulfillment of that. But now we got one more person we got to deal with. All right, so we've taken care of the troubled brother. We've taken care of the military commander, and we've taken care of the false priest. There's still one more guy that David said that you got to watch out for. Who was that? Oh, that's right. That's that Shimi dude. Dad, you get to read about that guy. 36 through 46.
Please tell LG where we are.
Oh, we're
Again,
in First Kings. I'll find out. Before you read that. Kings 2, 26. No, not 26. What did I say? 36 to 46?
36.
Yeah, 36. That's where we're at right there. Okay, Dad.
So I started 36.
36 through 46. Yes, sir.
Then the king sent for Shemaiah and said to him, build yourself a house in Jerusalem and live there, but do not go anywhere else. The day you leave and cross the Kidron Valley, you can be sure you will die. Your blood will be on your own head.
So basically, he puts him under house arrest, right? You got to stay here. You cannot leave.
Under threat of death.
Yeah.
So Shimei answered the king, what you say is good. Your servant will do as my lord the king has said. And Shimei stayed in Jerusalem for a long time. But 3 years later, 2 of Shimei's slaves ran off to Achish, son of Maacah, king of Gath, and Shimei was told, your slaves are in Gath. At this, he saddled his donkey and went to Achish at Gath in search of his slaves. So Shimei went away and brought the slaves back from Gath. When Solomon was told that Shimei had gone from Jerusalem to Gath and had returned, the king summoned Shimei and said to him, did I not make you swear by the Lord and warn you, on the day you leave to go anywhere else, you can be sure you will die? At that time you said to me, what you say is good, I will obey. Why then did you not keep your oath to the Lord and obey the command I gave you? The king also said to Shimei, you know in your heart all the wrong you did to my father David. Now the Lord will repay you for your wrongdoing. But King Solomon will be blessed, and David's throne will remain secure before the Lord forever. Then the king gave the order to Benaiah, the same guy, Benaiah.
Yeah, but
I got it split from one side to the other. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, and he went out and struck Shimei down, and he died. The kingdom was now established in Solomon's hand.
okay, so
That was the last.
that was good. So Solomon actually got to
Well,
all the people that David warned him about.
yeah, but Solomon didn't go straight out and shoot and kill him. He didn't go straight to Shimei and kill him. He said, you can live in that house as long as you don't leave.
Yeah.
But he left.
Yeah, well, you know, that
And
guy.
he came back and then it got.
Yes, yes. Well, remember, Gath is also Goliath's hometown.
Yes.
All right, so you got to keep that in mind. So that's a pretty good trip. You know, I got to be honest with you. 2 slaves running away.
Let him go.
Let them go, man. Or send someone else.
Yeah.
But why did he feel the need to go out and do it himself? I mean, it's obviously the 3 years. 3 years had gone by, so he got a 3-year extension on his life, and I'm sure he probably thought, they've forgotten about that. They forget about little old me.
Besides, I'll be back before they're on.
Yeah, and plus I'm doing official business here. I mean, I got to go fetch what's mine. And notice that there's not one word of Shimei trying to beg for his life at this point. It's all Solomon talking here. You don't hear anything from. And I'll be honest with you, I think we've heard enough from Shimei. That's what got him in trouble in the first place. So he didn't think it was a big deal to break his promise to the king. And well, it wasn't even just a promise; it was an oath. He said, by the Lord your God, I would have taken that as what a gift. I still get to live. Everybody else is being killed left and right. Joab's gone. The priest guy wasn't. He was stripped, but defrocked. But anyway, he didn't think it was a big deal to break his promise to the king. But I got to tell you, coronations have consequences. So next week, Solomon is given a choice from God. It's a choice of whatever he wants, and Solomon chooses wisely.
I know what that is. You choose wisely.
What time is your song?
Well, I think I better turn off some clocks. What do you say?
Yeah, it was a little loud in there.